Hey, Gracebased families. This is Megan Hunt. I'm here co-hosting this podcast for the next 8 episodes with Cody Kimmel, and we're talking about what grace-based parenting looks like in action. We're talking about connection and correcting our kids. I'm a mom of 6 myself. I'm from Ruston, Louisiana, and I'm a first grade teacher, a foster mom, and I'm a practitioner of TBRI, trust-based relational intervention. And all those things kind of help me to be able to figure out what parenting really looks like in times where kids are not obeying, we're frustrated, we're overwhelmed. What does grace-based families really look like in action? So if you identify with me in any of those ways, you need to listen to these episodes because they're going to give you a lot of hope and a lot of practical tools for parenting your kids with grace.
Well, welcome to the Gracebased Podcast. We're continuing our conversation with Megan Hunt today about the power of connection and correction, the necessity of both in helping to ultimately launch our kids into a successful adult life. I'm really excited to be here, Megan. Let's just kind of dive into this. We spent a lot of time in the first episodes of kind of this series really talking about how do we connect with our kids? How do we create that, feeling of closeness and nearness that we need to have for them to have success? And now we're really starting to talk more about how do we move into that other necessary part of parenting, which is correcting our kids and helping to kind of put some guardrails up. And one of the ways you'll talk about this is balancing this reality of nurture and structure.
Right.
So first off, maybe define a little bit what we mean by nurture and structure, and then kind of why is it so important that there is a genuine balance between these two?
I think that's great. We've talked about in previous episodes, I'm a practitioner of trust-based relational intervention, TBRI, and TBRI really is an attachment-based model that talks about how we can respond to people who have experienced trauma. But what TBRI holds as essential for kids who have experienced trauma, I find is excellent practice for all kids. And one of the things that TBRI has really taught me about is kind of my caregiving structure and my style. And all parents have a caregiving style that a lot of times is what your parents did.
Yeah.
And those caregiving styles balance in some way nurture and structure. So nurture being how we provide care and love and attunement to our children. And structure would be how we provide security and boundaries, how we cultivate growth.
Yeah.
And really, if we have too much nurture, then we are not giving them opportunities to grow. And if we have too much structure, we don't promote felt safety and we don't give them an opportunity to thrive. And so what a lot of caregiving structures would say is there's, depending on you as a person, you would either be high in nurture, meaning you are super lovey, great at loving kids, but low in structure, meaning you don't have a ton of rules or routines.
Yeah.
And some people, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And I tend to be more of a high structure person where it's easier for me to say, this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it. And sometimes it's harder for me to navigate just that nurturing side. But what TBRI would say—
spontaneity to nurture.
That's
Oftentimes
right.
It's very responsive to people.
It is. And so you're choosing people over your patterns or your plans, which is hard for me.
Yeah.
But what TBRI would really teach us as parents that I think is excellent is that we should do both at a high level, that we should offer high nurture at the same time as high structure to our kids. So what that means is that our kids have clear boundaries and expectations, but they also have a very strong sense of being loved and cared for and their emotional and physical needs met. So because of that, and we know we're not perfect parents, all of us in some way are going to have to grow.
Yeah.
And so it's just for us identifying which area we need to grow in, whether it is nurture or structure, and then being kind of intentional about developing those skills to build that so we can offer nurturing and structure to our kids at the same time at high levels. And we've already really talked about a lot of ways to develop the nurture side through connection, through play, through offering choices to our kids. But today, I think we want to talk more about how
Structure.
to offer structure and increase the structure in our parenting style and in our
Yeah.
homes.
Now, I guess before we even get into that, what are maybe some like signs that either a home is too highly nurture based or highly structured or something like that? What are some indications? Because I think we all maybe have a sense of where we're at. Like I'm
Sure.
more like you. I'm more highly structured than nurture.
Yeah.
Like I have to have this mantra in my head of like people are more important than ideas, and I have to tell myself
Right.
that.
And I say people are more important than plans.
Yeah.
So it's kind
exactly.
of that's one indicator. If you can sense that you get very upset when your cheese gets moved,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
quote unquote,
Yeah.
if someone moves your cheese and it really upsets you and causes a rift in your relationship with your children, that might be an indicator that you're valuing structure over nurture. If
Yeah.
you're willing to kind of get into conflict about somebody because
Yeah.
your plans or your ideas get changed. A lot of times I think if we are just very rigid without having a sense of who we're serving,
Yeah.
that's another indicator that our home might be too structured because we're unwilling to change if someone's needs change,
Yeah.
right? If you all of a sudden have a kid who doesn't want to go to a basketball game because they're afraid it's going to be too loud and you kind of come unglued, that might be evidence that your plans are more important than this person who's expressing a need.
Yeah.
And kind of the other way, if you are kind of having a home where you don't really have a plan, you don't really have an idea about what's going to happen, and people inform everything that's going to happen, it might be a little bit too loose, and it might not provide the felt safety that a secure, a structured home might provide. And so we have to have a balance of both, and we want to bring those up both to as high of a level as we can in order to help our kids be successful.
Yeah. I think particularly with the structure imbalance, it reminds me a little bit of when Jesus was talking about to the Pharisees about this balance of law. He has this profound statement where he's like, the law was essentially a gift for people, not people a gift for the law. The law is made for people, not people for the law. And I think that's the imbalance that we oftentimes get. Like these structures are put in place for the thriving of the family, the thriving of the homes to give us safety and security. The moment that's flipped, then you're right. You forget who you're serving. Are we serving the structure? Are we serving the plan? Are we kind of doing that at the neglect of our humanity and our thriving, or is it serving that? And that's always a good gut check for me as somebody who maybe leans a little more towards that, where I kind of come up with an idea of like, hey, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the way it's supposed to look. This is how we're supposed to act. This is the order it's supposed to happen in. And if it's not happening in that way, then what's wrong with everybody? And it's a good gut check of saying that's when, like you're saying, nurture is not being valued at the same level as structure. And what I love is that you're saying it's not one or the other. There's not one that's better than the other.
No, we need both.
Yeah, you really need both.
And we need both at high levels in order to cultivate trust and growth in our children. So we use nurture to cultivate that trust that they know and believe that they are loved and precious. And we use structure to cultivate growth, to cause them to rise to the level that we need them to so that they can continue to grow into adults in the way that God has designed for them.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about structure, because I think for people that maybe are naturally in that, there's an intuitive nature of like, you don't have to tell me what structure means. I get it. That's how I think. For those that maybe need to level up in this area, what are some like kind of easy ways of thinking about what structure can look like in a home?
So when I think about structure and providing that in my home, I have 6 children. And so people ask me all the time, like, how do you do it with so many kids? And I think having a high level of structure in my home is important. That doesn't mean that we have a high level of rules or that we are very rigid, but it does mean that the kids know what to expect and when to expect it. And so it promotes their feeling safe because they know what to expect. And so I can kind of break that down into 2 kind of chunks. I think of one as rituals, which is kind of like traditions, things that we do as a family that kind of define who we are
Yeah.
that kids can expect and look forward to. And the other is routines. And
Yeah.
those are procedures or expectations that are consistently the same so the kids know what to expect and what's going to happen next. And it helps them to be safe, to be actually safe and to feel safe, and then to not be asking so many questions or even pushing back on some things that are just a part of what we do as a family.
Yeah.
So for me, some of those routines doesn't mean that like we get up at this specific time and we do it. You have 5 minutes to do brush your teeth and then we're doing this. Sometimes it's just a pattern in which we do things, kind of like a flow that we do things. Sometimes that might mean that we all get up in the summertime, especially we all get up, we eat our breakfast, we get dressed, and then we have a few minutes before we get going that everybody does their work, their chores. And everyone might be doing different things in different order, kind of like we talked about in previous episodes, but everyone's working on the same thing. And when our chores are done, then it's implied, we call it free time, right? I worked at camp in the summer, and so I love to say
free time's the best time.
It's free time. They're like, what can we do next? Free time. And so even within free time, we kind of know like this is you can do these choices and then it's lunch, right? And as parents, as adults, we kind of have a structure in our mind about how days are going to go. But for our kids, one of the best things we can do is kind of get that out of our brain and communicate that to our kids. Tell them what to expect. That is one thing that really helps the structure of our home be effective, because not only do we have a structure, but we're telling the people who are operating within that structure what it is. So we're going to tell the kids what we're thinking about, whether it is the structure of our day, about like this is what our day is going to look like today, or this is what I expect us to do after school. This is what the sequence of events are going to be between after school and dinner. Those kind of routines really help our kids know what's coming next. And my favorite thing to do is just write it down or draw it. I'm famous for like a Post-it schedule. I have Post-its all over the place because I love to be able to just scribble down, even for my little kids, in pictures. Like this is what we're going to do. And you'd be shocked how many times I will find even a 2-year-old wandering around with a Post-it note looking at the pictures. Like this is what we're doing next. So it helps for kids that tend to I've got a couple kids that a little bit neurodivergent and might have a little bit of ADHD tendencies, kind of wandering. We've got some wanderers. And so just that structure of like, hey, this is what we're going to do in the morning. We're going to get up, eat your breakfast, brush your teeth, get dressed, get your shoes on. And that just, even if it's a few items, helps them to stay organized, and it helps our home to be orderly so kids know what to expect from us. And kind of with that also is just being very clear and explicit about what the rules are or what the expectations are, especially if it's something that's kind of tricky or you run into a lot of problems with it. So we have a rule posted on our fridge about when we can have Cokes, when we can have we call them Cokes in the South. When you can
Cokes
have a
means
soda.
all sodas.
That's right. What kind of Coke do you want? Dr. Pepper, Sprite, right? It's the South. So I have a little Post-it note that's just a 3 little bullet point reminder about what the expectations are for that. That's part of being structured. It's telling kids that when we wash our hands in the bathroom, we use 2 pumps of soap. So that it's not how much soap do you, right? It's being explicit and very specific about what you want them to do. And then, 99% of the time, kids want to do it. They feels good to know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes depending on your family or your kids, you might not have to be as explicit and specific about 2 pumps of soap. But for me, that's one of my hacks about having so many kids is I'm just very explicit about what I need everyone to do. So that they know what's expected of them and that we can keep moving. And I'm not just running around like a chicken trying to make sure everybody is doing what they need to do.
Well, and I love the way you described that as it's less about rules and more about rituals, routines, kind of these habits and flows and stuff like that. Because what I think it's important for us in hearing this is that what we're not saying is structure means like a highly regulated, high rule household. Because in the same way that, we talked about earlier, like over control is exhausting. Too many rules is exhausting. And when you make it a rule, what I have found, particularly if it's a rule that's not rooted in some moral or ethical thing, where it's like, as a family, we always get up at this time, we always do that. Inevitably, things are going to happen. Either somebody's going to push back, or even just the reality of life where it's like, well, it's a rule except for that day when we have to do this thing, and except for that time when this thing happens. And the moment you have to start making constant exceptions to rules, the rules don't mean anything. And so thinking of it more as routines of
I think of it more like a pattern.
Yeah,
like this is the pattern, like a sequence of events that unfold, and then it allows opportunity for flexing if we need to.
Exactly.
But what I also find is that when I kind of put some patterns in, let's say for let's say even bedtime, it offloads the control from me and gives my kids more opportunity for control, because they know what to do and I can entrust them to do what they need to do. And then I can just be more of an overseer or a manager, and they know what's happening next. They're not going to ask like, well, can I have a drink of water? Well, of course we do that every night. Well, can I have how many stories can I have? Well, we do 3 stories every night. In my family, that's just kind of what we do. And then they know what to expect. And the most neat thing for me is when you see kids feeling so comfortable because they know what to expect next. They're not worried about that. In my classroom, it was as simple as me deciding every time we went to lunch, we were just going to go out. We have 2 classroom doors. We were just going to go out one of the classroom doors. This was the entering and exiting door for lunch. So when I would say, it's time to line up for lunch, the kids knew which door we were going to go out of. Because can you imagine if I didn't have that routine, they'd be like, well, some of them would be over there, some of them would be here. I would have to give. But when I have kind of a cue for like, this is what we're going to do every time, it makes it really seamless and effortless for me and for them. They know what's coming next.
Well, it's interesting because it kind of roots back into this idea of, you've talked about scaffolding, of like setting up a structure for thriving for kids. And I think it's a good buffer against, I think, what can happen when, like, although giving choice is important, if you give too many choices, or if you don't provide enough in expectations or frameworks for things, too many choices can be paralyzing to a kid. Or if they don't know what to expect,
they don't know what's coming next. Yes.
I think that can. It's interesting. The same realities of play, of like what happens to a kid when they're at play. I think when that felt safety can also happen through like clear expectations. One of the things that I also love about that is, like if they know that, let's say they wake up in the morning, like this happened this morning. My daughter woke up. It's the summertime, so people are waking up at different times. They're not having to rush off to school. We ate breakfast and she's like, well, can I go watch a show? Because we have some embedded routine, I can say no to her then, but she knows that that's not a no forever. It's a no because now is not the time in which something like that would typically happen. And so it almost even helps soften the no's that you do have to give to kind of create some structure.
Even saying like, well, let's look at our schedule to see when is a good time for us to do that. That no, it's not the time for that right now. We're going to do that after lunch or whatever it is. And sometimes, you do not have to. There are plenty of moms, phenomenal moms, that are really scheduled people that are not scheduled people. This really isn't about necessarily being scheduled, but I think it's more about communicating what to expect. And then being a man or woman of your word, and as demonstrating that you're trustworthy to your kids. So if you say to them, after our nap, we're going to, put our shoes on and go outside and play, then you need to be willing to say like, yep, that is what we're going to do after our nap time. We are going to get up and go to play, because it cultivates a sense of that they can trust us what's going to happen next. And then you're right, their defenses come down. And so I can see that is something in my family that has really hugely shifted. Especially, we're foster parents. So as we welcome children that have not been in our home forever, having some of those invisible procedures and rules actually just like put down on paper help us to know what they are. And then sometimes for me too, it helps me expose like, oh, I guess I don't really have any expectations for that time. So why am I getting frustrated when this kid isn't doing something? I actually haven't even established an expectation for that.
They don't know what I want for them to be doing.
No. And so I might say to my daughter, you are taking too long in the shower. Well, I probably haven't even told her how long is a good shower. I haven't helped her at all with that. So we just have to kind of be explicit about what we want, and it helps our kids to be successful.
So let's talk a little bit more about ritual, because I think it almost serves a little, ritual. It serves a little bit of a different role, because it's almost like routines are kind of setting regular, almost daily expectations, or sometimes weekly expectations, patterns around everyday life. I think of rituals, like you mentioned, there's things that kids can look forward to. They're almost like these like anchor points that you can go to. One of our favorite rituals that we do, and we don't do this every single time, every single week, but we call it Fancy Fridays. And really, it's not very fancy at all. We all wear whatever we want to wear, but we just move from the kitchen table to the dining room table. And our younger two will set up little like fake candles. That's it. And we eat, nothing about it is actually fancy, but it delineates some moment of connection that all of us can look forward to. We've all had a busy week. We can all come back to it, and you'll find them looking forward to it. And there's no questions about it. And they know that usually after Fancy Friday, we're going to do some type of family thing. Like we're going to do, a movie together. We're going to play a game together, a bike ride, go outside, And it doesn't, what I love about it, it doesn't, some weeks it just doesn't happen because of certain things, but there's enough regularity in it to where they can anticipate that. Or like Christmas time, there's easy examples of rituals, but even like weekly things that you can kind of put
those
in
are
there.
big kind of, you're creating a culture of your family. And I think what you're doing what you're doing with that too is you are saying we are a team, we are all together, and you as all the members of your family are an important part of the team, and it builds cohesion, and it makes you feel like you're part of a community and you're in it together. And that's one of our family rules is stick together. And stick together is so powerful. It's powerfully seen when we're doing things all together that are special for our family or for our unit. So I do things that are rituals for my classroom. I might do things that are rituals for my home. So one in my family is silly things that you probably have rituals already. Like you said, you already have one, but families listening, you probably have rituals that you do that you just don't identify. But like when it's somebody's birthday, we do presents in the morning. And so I put like a plastic tablecloth on the thing. Everybody makes a note. We make a poster and we put their presents right where they sit for breakfast. And like, that's it. That's the whole thing. But kids are so excited when it's their birthday. They wait at the top of the stairs. Is my seat ready? And they know this is what is going to happen. But it's in a way that is, it's anticipatory and like we said, it builds the sense that like I'm a part of this family.
And it's a way to, I guess, reaffirm values even within your family of this is our culture, togetherness, sticking together. We value the fact that you're here and present, so we want to make sure there's at least some type of regularity with what we do for birthdays. We do a similar thing. We do a donut cake because it's morning time. Because sometimes birthdays happen in the weekend. We can't do a big party or whatever, or it's a school day, or like we have some summer birthdays where we might be out of town. So what's something we can at least accomplish anywhere, regardless of the birthday, and stuff like that. And yeah, you're right. Like it's not a big thing, but man, they look forward to it. It really means something. I mean, we just had somebody turn 15 and he's expecting it. And it's this kind of anchor thing for him.
I even think of things like silly things in my family of origin. My dad forces us to watch White Christmas on Thanksgiving night. That is what we do. And I mean, I love White Christmas. It's my favorite movie. And after probably 12 years of watching it, I think my husband now can tolerate it. But he's like, this is what the Bates family does. This is what we do. And I think that there's a lot of ways that we can do it that aren't just holidays or celebrations. There's a
Yeah.
lot of just rhythms we can have. Sometimes, I mean, as a child, I loved to read Anne of Green Gables every summer.
Okay.
That was like,
Yeah.
it's summer, I'm rereading the same
Yes.
book. It gives a sense of familiarity.
Yep.
And that structure that is fun and easy. And
Yeah.
so if you're somebody that is trying to build structure into your life, I think starting with a ritual is a really good one because it's fun.
Because it's fun. Yes, exactly.
And maybe you just need to dream a little. Maybe like sometimes for me, I'm not a great inventor of new ideas, but I am very good at spotting a good idea. So I look across the people that I think that my friends or people that I'm like, man, they've got a cool family. Oh, I love what they do. And I did that in my classroom. I needed a birthday ritual. And there's a teacher down the hall that puts her kids in the spinny chair, like the teacher spinny chair, and sings happy birthday and spins them around the room. And the kids love it. And I thought, you know what? That's a great, I want to adopt that one. You know, it doesn't have to be something super special or unique. You can say, that's a great ritual that I really admire. And I want to add that to my family and just start it. Try it. See. And like you said, it's okay if it doesn't happen all the time. But just having an aim that we're doing something for the purpose of cultivating our culture of togetherness, but knowing that it's also building up the structure in our home and helping our kids to feel safe.
I even think this can come into play of the idea of like a rite of passage. So that's something growing up, we would have, you know, some levels of that. But when I turned 13, and when any of the kids turned 13 in our family, we would go on a 13th birthday trip. And it was essentially like within reason, we'd get to choose where we went. And it was just us and one of the parents. And it was great. And so that's something we brought into our family. I've gotten to go on 2 13th birthday trips, and it really helps delineate. It's something they look forward to. And especially now that, because we have younger kids, they know, they've seen their older siblings go on these trips. They're looking forward to it. It's this kind of anchor thing. And through that, we're able to do all these things. Another one that we would do is when they turned, I want to say 6, there's in Phoenix, where we were living most of the time when our older 2 were 6, there's a mountain called Piestewa Peak. It's like a mile and a half up, mile and a half down, pretty steep. So it's work for them to get up to, but doable. And so every single kid, when they turn 6, they go up with dad to the top of the mountain. It's something silly. Like it's not a big thing, but because you kind of give it, it's almost like you give it a value.
Yeah, what it's you're kind of deciding, what does it mean to be a part of our family?
Yeah.
What is our family like? And as parents, I think sometimes we forget that we get to choose that.
Yeah.
We get to choose the markers and what aims we have for our family and what values, what things that are very, very important to us. We know that biblical values and rearing our kids to know and love God is very important. But also, how does it feel to be a part of our family? And so it's neat that I love all those rituals and all of those kind of coming of age celebrations. I think those are just a great way to put those in and get our kids excited about being a part of our family.
Well, and I think what's so wonderful, because I think when you can hear structure and nurture, you think, okay, you have fun and then not fun.
That's right.
And you're like, okay, so kids need to have not fun and fun to thrive. But that's not what you're saying at all. Like it's not. They're counter, not in the sense of like one is preferred of the other or one is fun and not fun.
They're both essential.
They both can be fun and they both are essential. Now, what about, and I'm like, I experience this all the time, despite our best efforts and despite our best intentions, we set up routines, we set up rituals, we have all of these things. We're trying to do everything right, and kids are still resistant to these realities. How does grace help us through that? How have you helped navigate it even within your family, kids who maybe are a little resistant to follow the flow, if you will?
I think that is a great opportunity for us to dig deeper and ask ourselves, drill down a little and ask, why are they? Why? Is this kind of unfair? Is this asking too much of them? Going back to what their expectations, what our expectations are for them. And I think deciding what's really important to us and how much we can flex within that. So I'm just thinking of, I've got one particular child that in the morning when we're getting ready for school, who really doesn't want to eat. He doesn't want to do the toothbrushing and the breakfast the same way that everybody else does.
Yeah.
He wants to do his toothbrushing the minute he gets up in the morning.
Yeah.
And then he gets really bent out of shape that he might have to brush his teeth again later. And so we kind of fought that battle for a while and then decided, you know what? It's actually not that important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So grace to me says, let's let go of the things that are not important and let's see our relationship with our child as the most important thing.
Yeah.
And that we really want to value our relationship with them above all things and make sure that our structure is not impeding any of those things. And where it is, kind of ask ourselves why and be willing to look at it. And a lot of times too, having our kids kind of help.
Yeah.
And
kind of asking them questions.
Yeah.
Why are you struggling with this?
Or you know what? If we were to invent, and we did this with bedtime in the summer, hey, we were to do something for if you were to invent a bedtime schedule, like if we said, okay, it's time for bed, and we were to invent that schedule, what would you have it be? And 3 of the 4 kids that we asked said exactly what we do.
Right.
And only one said, I don't think we should have any schedule. And I'm like, well, but that's... But when we really hard pressed, she wanted more time to read. She's like, I don't think we should have a limit on how much we can read. And so that was a really interesting... And with her, we were able to flex. She was the oldest, and we were able to say, you know what, actually, I think it's reasonable. For after we read as a family, you keep on reading and you turn out your light however many minutes later. That's great. So I think it causes us to elevate the people over the process and the plans and the ideas like we've talked about before, and to see those people as the most valuable reason that we're parenting.
Yeah. When it roots us back in this idea that these are there for the thriving of the people in our home.
That's right.
It's not there to establish some level of authority or something like that. It's a way of respecting them, a way of doing that. So as we close, what are, I guess, some really, I know we've given a number of examples of this already. What are maybe just a few other practical ways that you've either seen in your own life or other people's lives of establishing good routines, establishing good rituals that help cultivate this type of thing?
Yeah, my favorite thing to do when I do some family coaching with families through the nonprofit The Well in North Louisiana, and one of the things that we do to help families cultivate structure and a sense of felt safety, first thing is put digital clocks everywhere. And I know that sounds like a really weird and silly thing to do, but
half the time kids have no idea what time it is.
No, and they can't tell time.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if your kids are like mine, the oven is the only thing that they've got.
That's the only digital clock, yeah.
And so what I do is I use that as an opportunity to tell them, we're going to leave, at about 10:55, and then be able to look at a clock and then match that with, okay, she said that, and actually that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I also use visual timers too. So kind of looks like a, like an oven timer, but you twist the amount of time and it turns red, and then the red shrinks as the time is going down. So I use those 2 visual reminders as a way to promote felt safety.
Yeah.
So if I say to my kids, we are leaving for school at 6:15, then I can say, look at the clock, it's 6:15, it's time to go.
Yeah.
And as they get older, they're more able to see elapsed time and figure out, okay, I only have this amount of time.
Yeah.
But that's a really big one, especially for teenagers, I think too. When my kids are 6, I slap a watch on their hand and I put that on them, especially when they go to school. It helps them feel safe and secure with school, knowing when is lunch, when is recess. And as a teacher, that's something that I'm really big on, is we have a huge digital clock because I want kids to know what time it is, and that Mrs. Hunt is going to take you to recess at 1:00 every single day. And that is what we do. And it just ups their trust in me. And it's a way for me actually to nurture them within that structure, because I'm saying that's important for you. So that is a big one. And then another one is just deciding to use lists that we give to kids, and we have them teach them how to make a list of a routine or a structure. Hey, okay, when we get home from school today, let's make a list of what we're going to do when we get home before dinner or before we go to baseball practice. Yeah. And so, like I said, I've got Post-its everywhere and kids can make their own list. So my 7-year-old will oftentimes sit in the car and kind of start to jot down the steps of our afternoon routine. And it helps him to like get it in his mind, like, okay, one of these steps is going to be homework. Yep. I don't want to do that, but it's in here.
Yep.
And so those are some really just quick, easy things is get some clocks, maybe a watch, and then see about visual timers. I get them. I have a magnetic small visual timer for each of my kids that goes on the fridge, and each one has their own color. And you can use that. And like one year I gave them out to my friends. I'm like, these are the best things ever. You all need these on your fridges. So those are like little tools that might really be game changers for some families.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, this is Heather from Texas. Gracebased Families makes free resources for parents, thanks to the generosity of listeners like you and me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebased families.com/join.